time.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It is Christine Conti.
Hello, Christine Conti. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you, Gareth?
I am good. It's a very weird experience, but we won't dive into that too much. But yes, I am good, and I am back focused, and I'm here. So thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for this chat. And today, obviously, everyone's heard. It's Christine Conti is here. Me and Christine connected a few months back now on a podcast panel that we did together at Cam Fit Pro, which was awesome. And we've stayed connected and we've shared some podcast episodes. And I was like, this is a conversation we have to have on the show. So I'm excited to dive into it. We got a lot of amazing stuff to talk about, and I got some great talking points. But before we do that, it's going to be a little bit of an intro. So everyone listening today, it's a little idea of who Christine is. So Christine's a fitness expert, motivational speaker, presenter. As I mentioned, we connected through the world of presenting. She is the owner of Conti Fitness and Wellness, TFC Productions, and the co-host of the Two Fit Crazies and a Microphone podcast, which I was very, very honored to be a guest on. So that's, as I said, how we connected. And you've just got an amazing story that we're going to hear all about today. But, you know, especially I'm interested in kind of your racing experience, which we'll dive into, and then the amazing, you know, courses and the course content that you've been developing on, eating disorders fitness specialist course, and also the arthritis fitness specialist course. So that's something that I was really intrigued in and finding out a little bit more about. So now everyone knows who you are, we're going to get into a nice chat. So kick us off. I'd love to hear, we spoke about, a few of the topics and stuff we wanted to talk about, but what I'd love to hear about first is a little bit about Christine, like pre-fitness world. So a little bit of that kind of transitioning. What were you doing before? How and why did you switch over to a career in fitness? And yeah, we'll just branch out from there.
Oh my gosh. First off, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love being a podcaster and a host, but it's always so much fun and no pressure when you get to, be with somebody else and, not have to interrogate, and you can kind of sit back a little bit. So I appreciate that, getting the message out to the masses. But First off, I am not that serious is number one. That is number one. If I was always so focused and so intense, if you ask anyone, describe Christine growing up, intense is the word that they would say. And what's funny is that over the course of the last 25 years, I have become less and less serious. Although I study, I speak, I research, I love people though. And I feel like I'm a serial learner. So before I got into this, I call it the business of fitness. I used to ask my daughter when she was 5, they would ask her in school, what does your mommy do? And she'd be like, she works out. That's her full-time job. And I'm like, really? You think I work out full-time? Okay. All right. That would be awesome, but that's not it. So I grew up in New York. Obviously, I have this flag here because I talk to people around the world on a daily basis. So it's really easy. Not that they couldn't figure out by looking at me and hearing my voice, but it's easy to figure out, on a big panel, like she's in the United States. Okay, don't have to open my mouth. So I grew up in New York. We all know where that is. On Long Island, actually. And I was a volleyball player growing up. I have 2 older sisters that played in college. I'm about 5'9", which I was always reminded, you could be good, but you're not 6'5", so you're not going to make this a career, sweetheart. But I got to play in college, and that was, I've always worked with personal trainers and sports conditioning coaches, and I got to play at a very high level, got to travel the world even and train with like the Russian national team. That was frightening. And one of the French national teams, not kidding. It was scary. And we called it like boot camp. I think we went in for 2 weeks and like we all came out, we were like 10 pounds lighter and like traumatized, but they were amazing. And I'm very blessed. That paid my meal ticket to college. And however, I was always told that fitness is not a that's not a career. That's a hobby. That's like what you do for fun. That's like, okay, you have your full-time gig and then you do fitness. So I was programmed like that. So of course I was investment banking out of college in New York City, tons of money, great time, but you're working 14 hours a day. And it's like, you're sitting at a desk, and it was so unfulfilling. And it was the first taste of like, I was told, money is success, right? And I didn't feel it. So I also had an English degree. So I went to graduate school and got my master's in English and education, leadership, curriculum, whatever. It's a piece of paper. It hangs up there. But I could teach, which means I could coach volleyball. I coached the girls in the fall, the boys in the spring. And I loved fitness. I always did. So when I was in college, I wound up getting my first national certification. So I was a Group X instructor for AFA, and wound up after that in graduate school. That was my side hustle. That was my side money. And I actually taught English and coached, and every fitness certification under the sun, from like Zumba to yoga to, I don't know, kickboxing to you name it, because I loved it. And I went to all the conferences and I just learned as much as I could and sucked on to all the fitness professionals that had all this knowledge. And then I wound up getting more involved, more and more. I've started working for fitness companies and, big box gyms, boutiques, and started, not only teaching, but then jumping on planes every Friday through Sunday night, every weekend now teaching, giving certifications. And my kids, I taught like 17, 18-year-olds. They'd be like, oh, Mrs. Conti, we're so tired. And I'm like, yeah, I just got in 5 hours ago from Dallas and I haven't slept in 3 days. And I have 2 kids. You want to talk tired? Like, game on, buddy, game on. So fast forward, I call it, my podcast partner, Brian, who you should know now because y'all listened to that episode.
Yeah.
He always says, you don't jump, right? You don't jump from, one thing to another. It's you pull the boat close enough to the dock to step off. And that's what I did over the years. I felt like something was kind of missing. And whereas I should have been so fulfilled with all the money in banking, I should have been so fulfilled teaching those kids. In those 4 walls were like suffocating. Like it was almost like, like the Hulk or like Hulk Hogan like pulls their shirt off. Like I was like, oh, I have to get out of here every day. And that's when I decided, I had some health issues along the way and a couple rounds of chemo, and just some lines in the sand happened to me. And I just figured it's now or never. And if I don't take a sabbatical from teaching and go for it, whatever that it is that's in here, and I didn't really have a complete plan. I just knew that this is where I belong. I did it. And that was, I literally peeled out of the parking lot. I think after my last day teaching, I probably had and they were like blasting, gangster rap music as I threw all the papers out the window. It didn't happen, but in my mind, that's what I remember.
Yeah. I love it. The perfect goodbye. Yep. That's amazing. It's so the first thing thank you for sharing that first of all, and I love hearing those journeys. And we're also different, and there's the typical stories we hear of fitness journeys, and then there's the less typical, and mine's very different from a lot of people I speak to. So because I've literally never done anything else from 17 years old, so I don't know a lot of the rest of the world. What happens outside of it.
Air quotes, the rest of the world.
The rest of the world. And where people have real jobs, because people are saying to me, like, what else do you do? I'm like, no, I just literally run the business from my basement, all day. That's what I do. So we always joke about that, like the real job and the real world. But I love hearing those transitional stories, because what I find and what I always try and promote within education with other fitness professionals is you want it to be that magical, and the fitness industry is hard, but it's also a magical place that you just get drawn to because of the people and the energy and the connections that you make and the people. And I've always seen that from the outside, you know, in other environments and other countries when I've moved around, but also I see what other people see, right? Like your clients and people I've worked with that have come into the industry. And it sounds much like yourself. You kind of dabble a little bit and maybe they're a participant and they start teaching and then they want to become a trainer and then they do that. And so it really does, it really pulls you in. And sometimes it can be negative depending on the environment you get pulled into. But for the most part, in my experience, I see it as a really positive, and we do pull people in and people want to be part of that. I think as, you know, and I'd love to hear your thought on this. I think as a, you know, as a professional fitness world and within education is we could do a better job of selling what it's really like, because the people want to come in, but sometimes it's not as sweet as people think it is.
Oh, it's 10% glamour and 90% hard, you know what, work.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I first started going to conferences, I would take people's sessions and they were like almost like rock stars up on this huge stage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they must be getting paid thousands of dollars for each session that they do. And their travel must be paid. And they have big sponsors from all the companies of the, you know, of whatever brands that they wear. Wow, I could have not been more wrong. Not been more wrong. It's the same thing when I was teaching and they'd be like, oh, you're so lucky. You're a teacher. You're done at 3 p.m. and you have 2 months off in the summer. Yeah, you know why? Okay, first off, you bring all that work home and it never goes away, ever. The parents are like beep, blop, bloop, blop, right? Like there's technology. And you have those months off in the summer. You have to have another job because I don't know why the government just stops paying you those 2 months and they keep sending you bills. Also, if you don't have that time away from those kids you teach, you will kill them. It's mental. So there's a lot that goes into that. And the same with the fitness industry. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors that take place. And, you know, what you're not seeing is the hours and hours of marketing, the hours behind your computer where you're trying to figure out, are you making calls? Are you reaching out to people? Are you handling your, if you're writing courses, if you have to do a lot of, you know, if you work for, a lot of people don't have their own businesses like we may have, where we do all the books and whatnot as well. And maybe offer courses and CECs and deal with like down the line. But if you're working for another company and you're a master trainer for them, you still have to do that continuing education. You still have to be on top of everything. And, you know, people think, oh, people just flock to you and they flock to your certifications. I have worked for many companies and have been a master trainer. It is hard work to get 3 people into a certification sometimes in a strange city where you have no connections or a different country. I've done things in Canada. I'm in New Jersey, New York. Like I don't have 85 friends in the city of like Toronto. I mean, maybe now that I know a lot of people in Toronto, but bad example. But before, I didn't know. Who was I? No idea. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a good insight. And, you know, I can say it over and over again, but and I just love that. I love that point of view. And I think, you know, for anyone listening, we have a lot of fitness consumers, fitness professionals that listen to the show, is for fitness professionals or people looking for it as a career. We're not trying to put you off. What we're trying to say is there's a lot that you see outside, right? Because people would look at, you know, the business that, you know, myself and my wife run and say, oh, well, you know, you got like 3 training sessions a day that you run. And then the rest is like, what? And I'm like, the rest is running the business, which I don't really know what I'm doing most of the time. So the coaching bit's the easy bit. And yes, that is fun. And yes, it is great to engage with people. And if you know, we do it virtually, but, you know, live as well for years gone by, it is fun to teach a class. But like you said, I think like that 45-minute class is travel, choreography, prep, like you're like, that's like 4 hours. So, you know, you space that out over the day, you got 2 or 3 classes, it's a 12-hour day. So it's just seeing that and understanding that. And from trainers I've had the privilege of training lots of personal trainers and working with lots of coaches. It's the same thing. Like, it's the same, you've got to look at that. Yeah, it's 6 clients, the work that comes with that. And you've got to be aware. And also as well, I think to some degree, you have to, if you understand that, you can step into it knowing whether it's the right job for you, because the training's a small part. So for me, like running a business, the training's great, but I also need to be open to learning marketing skills and business skills. I need to figure out what a friggin' HST form is, and I need to figure out what I have to give to my accountant. And because we don't hire anyone to do that. Like, I do it. I sit down here in the basement and do it when I'm not coaching. So it's just understanding that and knowing, and if you do get to the point where someone else does that for you, is knowing what things you do want to work on. Like, I have a creative side and I like taking those bits. So it's just opening your eyes, and people understanding that is important.
I would, to add to that, one of the best pieces of advice that I, say to people, for me, I just didn't jump into. So I have an LLC, which is Conti Fit. It's Conti Fitness, Conti Fit. I have an LLC. So when I first started personal training back in graduate school, I opened my LLC because I figured, hey, if I want to have, if I want to be professional, even if this wasn't my full-time thing, I want to be, I want business cards. I want a website. My first website I designed it. It was disgusting, but it was a website, right? Like you start somewhere. And I think that's really important to say, listen, if I want to do something on my own, what are the steps? What do I need to do? And forget it. If you have some clients already, great. But if not, what I think of is, I'm lucky because I have some business experience coming in. I also have that communication and the writing and the speaking because of 15 years teaching. If you can teach Shakespeare to 18-year-olds, like, you can pretty much teach anything to anyone, okay, and make it exciting. Throwing it out there. Yeah. That's all. But when I first started with fitness, I started teaching at the University of Maryland in their fitness department. And we would do a lot of continuing education. And it was like a, gradual release. You had a mentor, and they took you through, steps. This is for Group X, also for personal training. Although I had tons of experience working with someone, it wasn't me designing the programs. And I was very myopic because I didn't know what it was like to work with someone with comorbidities. What was it like to train someone that was obese or had arthritis? Or I didn't know. I was an athlete. We pick things up, we put things down, we're explosive, we're jumping, we're strong. I didn't know. And I think that I started with the university, and then I worked for various gyms, like local gyms, like World Gym, and like all these different chains, teaching classes, doing some personal training, then started taking on some personal training clients, and then started, making connections, going to conferences, then working at, I would say, more reputable, bigger gyms. So the smaller to the big box to the boutique. And over the years, over 20 years, I have gotten to work at every single type of facility. I was a regional director for the Orange Theories in my area for a couple of years. Did I really imagine myself as that position forever? No. Was I still writing and doing other things at the time? Yes. But did I get to see the ins and outs of how the most successful, fastest growing fitness company in the world was doing it? So, I kind of positioned myself so that I could learn every single type of business model. And that, again, is it, I always laugh. I'm like, sometimes you do things and you make $15 an hour for a class because you have other intentions. And that is really important, because now, working your way up, saying, oh yes, I did work in a boutique and this is how that operates. I did work in a big box. I did work in a chain. You get to see the inner workings of everything. So that is the biggest piece of advice I give to personal trainers or fitness, group X. Work your way up. If you get to a point where this is not working, I hate this, and whatever, or your main goal is to be your own boss, right? So I feel like it's a progression. You can't just jump out and be like, everyone come to me, I'm the best. You're not the best. Like, I was terrible when I first started teaching group X classes.
Yeah. It's such great advice. And everyone should, and I think to kind of summarize that is just be more aware. So anyone that is in the industry and is a professional or is looking at it, is you do your time, so to speak, and you just heighten your awareness. Because I have many conversations over the years of, this is a great example, personal trainers that pay half their money to the gym, or the gym takes half of it, pays them half. And I was like, I get it. I said, but you need to widen your lens. You need to look at what they're doing and how it works and learn. So then, because you said, oh, if I went out on my own, I'd make twice as much. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have any clients. You wouldn't make anything. So you have to, right? You have to figure that out. Same with group fitness. You could run a class with 50 people and get them all to pay you, and you'd be making $500 an hour. But guess what? If you're crap, you won't get that many people. So you got to figure that out. So it's really good advice that you go out there and you plant those seeds out there in the industry. You watch and you learn, like you said, and you pick all that
in the room.
Yeah,
is the biggest thing. Like, what can you do to put yourself in the room? I'm quoting air quotes for people just listening. That like, there's something to be said for showing your face and joining. If you're talking about not Zoom, if you're talking about joining your local chamber, going to a Zoom event or live events when they take place, like volunteering just a little bit to get your name out there. That's what's going to bring you the business. Why would I teach I haven't done this in a while, but I used to teach a class or two at all the gyms in my area.
Yeah.
All right. Number one is that I was in front of how many hundreds and hundreds of people per week. In addition, I got free gym memberships anywhere I wanted, right? Because if you walk in, you can kind of use a gym. But that would give you the, kind of notoriety. It would give you the connections. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I know Christine. Oh, do you need this? Oh, she's a specialist in this. Or, oh, I like her. You should call her. The referrals, the amount of, as looking in hindsight, looking back of all the people I've trained just as a favor or for, on and off certain time periods, like that's huge.
Yeah. Got to build those networks for sure. I love it. So I think there's some really valuable tips in there, and I want to, as valuable as they are, and we could talk about that for hours, we'll switch gears a little bit because you've got lots of other things that we need to hear about too. So I would love to hear, so I'll tell a funny story. So we're recording this right now. It's I'm not sure when this will go live, when everyone's listening, but I just this past weekend did a Spartan race, and we were just laughing about how much my calves hurt. And for those listening in Ontario, it was at Blue Mountains, which is, it's not wild. It's Ontario mountains. So it's not like they're super high, but the course was on the mountain. So it was like run up the hill, do an obstacle, run down the hill, do an obstacle, run up the hill, anyway. So my calves are very sore. And it was said it was 5K, but I'm pretty sure it was like 7. Anyway, it wasn't that far. I think I lied a little bit. However, it was a wild fun. We took a lot, people listening that are in our community will know we're big on trying to get more and more things now that things are opening up. So we took a load of our academy members and we went and did this run, and it was awesome fun. Anyway, that to be said, I want to hear a little bit about racing and the races that you do, because then everyone can laugh at me whinging about my calves hurting and I'm doing 5K. So let's hear a little bit about all these amazing marathons and runs and all the other awesome stuff you've been doing, because I know it's kind of like a bit of a holy grail for a lot of people, and I don't think a lot of people would ever really appreciate what the experience is like. So tell us about that.
Well, I have to tell you first, I have always hated running. You only run when you get in trouble, right? If you were an athlete, you know this, like, everybody stop and run. And you were like, right? Okay. The only reason my best friend and I joined track in high school was because the hot guys that were seniors would run. and it was winter track. So we got to like chase them around the track. It was great. That was literally, so there's your background into my running prowess, because I was a volleyball player. Like we didn't, okay. Fast forward, I love fitness. You know, I never ran. And I was at the age of 30, diagnosed with an advanced form of rheumatoid arthritis. Now, for those of you who think the word arthritis, you're like, oh, you hurt your ankle, now it's sore when it rains, or, oh, you're old, you're 85, it's normal. Well, arthritis is actually an autoimmune. You see those commercials all the time on television where if you take the medication, you can then like be in a canoe, have a, bathtub in the wilderness, like play handball. I don't know. It's like whatever they do with marketing, it's ridiculous. But so I got diagnosed, and this was at age 30. I was not able to like hold pens. I would break glasses all the time. It started in my hands. And I just thought my husband was so mad. He thought I was like being clumsy, and I'm like, but it got to a point where I could barely use my hands, and it felt as if my knuckles were broken. And I've actually had broken knuckles before. And I'm like, what is my wrists, and I'm like, what is going on? So that's when I wound up getting, they tested me. And what the issue is that when they said that, this is what I had, my grandmother, she was actually a quadriplegic on my mother's side. She died when I was 10. She could only, from the neck up was all that she could move. She had her wits about her. She was a wonderful woman, super positive, but she could not move her arms, legs, anything, completely dependent upon people, the family, nurses around the clock. And that was because of complications from rheumatoid arthritis, what I was diagnosed with at age 30. So that is all that I could picture in my head. I am going to, and fitness was my love, right? I just told you about how much I loved it. And all I could think of was, oh my God, I'm what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be paralyzed? And I don't want this. I don't want this for me. I'd rather die than have this happen. And, the doctor said, we don't know, maybe 5 years, 10 years, maybe, we're going to do whatever we can. Maybe, hopefully you'll be able to function normally and be active for the rest of your life. And I'm like, active? What does that mean? Like, I'm sorry. I'm not like pushing a walker for 50 years of my existence. It's not happening. Like, do you know who I am? So, so that is when I started my bucket list of things that, listen, if my body's going to fail me, and I don't know when, hopefully never, but we got to get on this, because I am not about to go down without a fight. And one day, if I'm not going to be able to do fill in the blank, then today's not that day. And that's when I started, I started running, did like a half marathon, wound up doing a marathon, just kind of threw my name in and did pretty well. And thought this feels good. Okay. And, I was on a couple different rounds of chemo and changed my diet and nutrition and sleep and hydration and tried to reduce stress as much as possible. And that's how it started. And every time I crossed a finish line, I felt, that could be my last race. So that in and of itself kind of woke me up to, this is amazing. And I need to share this with other people. And I started researching and being an experimental one, from acupuncture to, I think I was vegan for a little while. I did, just all these different things to see what might work for me, because everyone is so individual. And that is kind of the progression to, okay, well now, I did I think I'm like 44 marathons deep right now, and I pace because I help other people, achieve their goals, and wound up getting picked up by the Ironman Foundation because they knew my story of, trying to inspire other people with arthritis and autoimmunes and diseases to overcome that, that mental block of I can't, oh, poor me. It's nope, Nope. You got two choices in life. I always have to say this, my Wonder Woman, two choices in life, either do something or do nothing. Always choose something. And that was it. And I chose to inspire other people. I'm like, that's it. And that's kind of what led, again, this was like the domino that led to me having the courage to leave teaching, to say, there's something more out there. I can affect more people. And that's when I found my purpose. That's what was missing. I'm on my third I made a career. Like, I was investment banking. I'm like, yay. And then I was teaching. I'm like, yay. But yay, what's success? Like, is success money and just unhappiness mentally and feeling unfulfilled? Or is success really changing lives? And if you want to be in the fitness business, I just keep saying the word business, we want to change lives, but you also want to pay your bills. So you want to follow your passion like I did with racing and all this other stuff. But once you realize money can be made and you're still doing good and helping other people change their lives and live more quality lives, like that's when it clicked for me. And in April, there's a long story behind this, but in April, I did a 100-miler, and that's running, not on a bike or on a moped. 100-mile race. It was an adventure, I have to say. And I will probably never do it again. I had some toenail casualties, and
I can imagine.
And the recovery for like a 40-something-year-old middle-aged woman, like, I'm okay. I'm good with that. Recovery process was just a little took its toll on the body.
Yeah.
But it's something that, now I feel like I don't have to be the first or the fastest. It's about getting out there and just showing other people that they can too. And that's my whole racing. And yeah, I've done some crazy races, and I did on my 40th birthday, I did a 40 miles for my 40th birthday, but it was around a 0.5 mile loop around my block.
Ouch.
So it's like, doing things that may be a little off, which is the whole, when I left teaching and started the podcast, Two Fit Crazies and a microphone. That was what it was. Let's inspire other people. Let's give them some free, publicity to pump their awesomeness and give advice and let their, information shine to the world that they might not be able to do for themselves. So that was my background of racing. So
I love it. And number one, so inspiring that we're able to take those moments of adversity and use them to benefit the world. And it's for anyone listening that has an experience, like I don't have it, but autoimmune stuff and those inflammatory arthritis conditions are no joke. My mum has psoriatic arthritis. So yeah, to simplify, anyone listening, is basically psoriasis but inside your body as opposed to on your skin. So that, that inability to use your hands or whatever, like my mum's her hands, and, other people obviously suffer in different ways, but it's the same thing. It's on your mind, right? So whenever I have those days where I'm like, oh, my hands are a bit sore, I'm always like, all right, what do I need to do? Let me go do something. And right, because it's in your mind. And I'm very fortunate that it hasn't affected me, but similar thing, right? It can hit anyone at any time. And, being able to, it's so easy to just kind of give up when those things happen. So, it's inspiring to hear that. And I'm sure lots of people that listen have been through their own things or will go through things in their life. And it's so easy to, but how I kind of sometimes use in my head, I process this when I hear those stories, or I think about my life and anything that comes up and any type of adversity. It might be physical, could be many things, is, we don't want to, you get a flat tire on your car. You don't want to go punch the other three, right? You got
right.
There's other things that, you got to focus on. Like you said, you find those things that you can benefit and clearly, as you're an example of, can be massively inspiring as a result of things that happen to us. So I think that's important. And often it points us in the direction of what's fulfilling for us. So that's huge.
Right. And that's, I wouldn't have, without that, I wouldn't have realized, the medical fitness industry, that realm, that niche that was my, oh my gosh, moment of this is where I belong. And that's, I started getting involved with the MedFit Network, which is the mission is to provide education and, more outlets to people that have certain diseases. And if it wasn't for my own arthritis diagnosis and the research I did over that decade, I wouldn't have had the knowledge to be able to write the arthritis fitness specialist course. There's no way. And that's, it kind of snowballed into, I got to meet in the fitness industry, all the top exercise scientists in the world and all the nutritionists and the, fit pros and doctors and, having that, just networking. I love talking to people. I love people. Like, invite me to a party. I want to be there. Like, that's great. We can talk about science. We can talk about all this like nerdy stuff. We could talk about Shakespeare even, but let's do it in a way that's kind of fun. And that was the thing. There were so many people that I've come across in the last couple of years that they tell me, they're like, Christine, I feel like I'm just existing and I'm not living. And as a fitness professional, we have the ability to give people life, to, ignite their flame, their fire, to change their mindset. And that has been so cool. And it, again, keeping the options open, never, truly saying, no, I'm not interested in that. Or it's, wow, how can I help you? How can we connect? Do I know anyone that I can connect you with? Or it's been pretty amazing once you get rid of that kind of closed mindset and say, all right, I'm not sure how I can help you, but let's try something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting how we have to, just to add on to that, is we have to be able to drop our ego a little bit in that respect, and you kind of accept that. And me and Brian talk about this actually a lot on the show. For anyone that hasn't listened, go back and have a little look for the chat I have with Brian.
Yeah, what did you guys talk about?
We talked about we unpacked masculinity in the fitness industry, especially two guys having and I think a lot of people will be surprised by the things we spoke about and how we kind of unpack that, but that it leads so the conversations go really well together, because I think as men in the industry, we tend to struggle to drop that ego, meaning that we're not maybe as open to that. Men. That's us. Yeah. And when we don't drop that, we don't open up that. And that's something that I've learned the last few years, and podcasting is what I'm very grateful for in that respect. It's enabled me to be a bit more open to that and kind of accept help and direction from people, even though sometimes I like to think I know everything, or I should know everything. Is we have to drop that sometimes. So yeah, we unpacked that a little bit. So that was a cool chat. Something else I have to say as well is it's just me hosting today because Nikki was on bedtime duty, but if she was here, you two would be having a conversation about Shakespeare right now. She's I
quit. It's like a I got rid of it.
Performing arts background for many years before fitness, so she's into all of those. She's into that stuff that she talks to me about, and I'm like, yeah, sure, sweetie, yeah.
Et tu, Brute.
Yeah, exactly. Oh dear. So something now I'm dying to know, because obviously I'm literally got my little like foot thing under my desk here, and I'm stretching my calves right now. Is for anyone that doesn't, and we don't talk about the 100K, whatever it is that, you want to kind of dig into and experiences. I think myself and a lot of people want to know, what does it feel like? Like, what is it physically? And I know it's probably the most ridiculous question, because you're like, well, it's torture, but what does it feel like to run that type of distance? And maybe a couple of key words for like physically how it feels and mentally how it feels, because I'm always intrigued, and maybe the way I find out is to go do it. However, I'd rather you tell me.
All of it's all about your mind. It is complete mindset. From a 5K to a marathon to a 50 miler. I know we don't use miles in Canada, but that's what they call it here, 100 miles, whatever that relates to. there comes a point where you have that conversation with yourself. I can't do this. I can't. And it's over and over. You start beating yourself up. You start the negative self-talk, that self-deprecating, you're not good enough. You've never been this and this, and you have to shut that down. It's so powerful because your body, your body can do it, but your mind can't always do it. And very few times will your body give up on you. Your mind gives up much faster. So when you think of, at the end of that, I want to say like hour 22 into that 100-mile race, yeah, I was like, you're like walk jogging. Like I was like loopy. I was, like I'm seeing things like it's, it's pitch black. It was raining. People have headlights on. So if they're coming straight at you, like on a trail, it looks like a train, they're like, I looked at some point, I looked sideways because it's all like in, on trails and whatever. I looked sideways and I saw 8 pairs of glowing red fiery eyeballs. Like I stopped. I was like, I don't know. I had to stop and literally focus and look. Thank God they were deer. But like, I don't know. There's monsters out there. Like you are just kind of, but the week before, this is really interesting. The week before that race, I made a pact with myself that I was going to be positive all week long. I'm only going to think positive thoughts. And when I rolled up to that race start, I had no expectations except that I was going to finish. I'm going to finish and I'm going to finish before the cutoff because you only have a certain amount of hours to do it. I'm going to finish. That's it. And I met people on that trail and there was like 3 of us that were together for 18 hours and we made a pact. We're going to finish. So there's something that as wet and cold and this sucks and like you have this goal. So for some of those races, I know what it's like to do really well and be on a podium from these races. I know what it's like to pace someone else who's going through a rough time. I know what it's like to, DNF, which did not finish because of like an injury and whatnot. And there's nothing worse than not finishing. So when you, kind of put your mind on like, I'm going to finish and don't let anyone tell you anything else. The first Ironman I did, people were like, you're never going to do this. You didn't train. I was taking like certain chemo medications leading up to it. They're like, you're never going to be able to do this. I'm like, la, 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 la. Like, that's do you know who I am? That's one of those. And, I took on the yes, you can attitude. You have to have that mantra. So like some people will ask me the question of like, what was the worst part? When did you feel the worst? I'm like, you don't feel good. It's not like, brushing off your shoulder, but it's mind. You train your mind. Your mind has to be hard. And for those people that are like, David Goggins fans that are like, you don't know me, son. Like, who's going to carry the bow? Like, that's where you have to go. You got to go deep. You got to go dark in there, like way down. And if I don't mention this, my publicist is going to kill me. My book is coming out in January 2022. And one of the things that I talk about is that you have to feel all the feels. You got to let it all in. So I have something I use called my 10 count. And when I go through a race, or like you said, you're going through your race on yesterday?
Yeah.
Right. So like when you get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, my legs hurt, or like my lungs are going to blow up. I would mentally, I take a 10 count in my head. Like I'll take a deep breath. I'll count back from 10 and I let all the pain in. I let all of it, like you just feel it, let it overcome your body after that 10 count. Guess what? You're fine. You're still there. Nothing happened. You made it. Like you made it through that 10 count. You felt it all. All right. Maybe you have to do that a few times, like in different parts of your day or a race, or it's the same thing when you get dealt a bad card in life. Sometimes you got to let it in, because if you don't let it in, it's like stages of grief. How are you going to move past it if you don't let it in? So that's kind of when I race and do crazy stuff. That's what it is. I let all of it in. Like you deal with the demons that are in there and because you can let it go.
I love that. Yeah. And it's, I guess that you said, right, it goes for many things in life. We have to let those I've spoke many conversations about emotions with lots of people on this podcast and on the other podcast that I have the honor of co-hosting, and it's a lot of that. When, like you said, I've spoke to people that have gone through major grief and emotional, maybe they've turned the corner with mental state, etc., and their emotions, and it's all the same thing. It's a very similar approach, right? That we have to be open to those things. The minute we shovel that stuff down, I love that. Let it pass through you. And I think that's a really good message for anyone listening that maybe is on that beginning of that fitness journey, wanting to start that fitness journey, maybe thinking that, it's just too hard to get, that to do another squat, or to get up again from the floor, or whatever it is, right? To get up and do that early morning workout, your body can do it. But what I think is important is that we have to be aware that mentally it takes time, right? Like physically you've got to continue to progress, but you've got to let your mind at the same time, because if you don't, one's going to leave the other one behind, and then you're going to get probably out of the consistency in which you need to achieve any goal.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. The word is consistency. What is it? I don't care what you want to be. You want to be a basket weaver? You got to practice weaving those baskets every day. And the fitness professional, even, people that are fitness pros and trainers that are listening, it's, all right, so you sat down at your computer and did some marketing and social media for an hour today. Guess what? Your butt needs to be in that chair for an hour tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And this is business. Anything you want to do full time and you want to be successful is really hard work. Do you enjoy it? I love what I do right now. And I feel guilty saying that sometimes to people who are stuck in their life, and then oh, how many years before retirement? I'm I'm never going to retire. This is awesome. I love teaching people. I love writing, and I love getting to talk to people like you and all over the world. This is cool. And if I could change lives and I could get paid to do it too, okay, that's even better. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. When people talk about, positivity, I am Miss Positivity. All right. Yes, I can get annoyed sometimes. And that's when I go for a run.
Yeah.
I run it out. I run the crazy out and then come back.
Well, we're feeling all the positivity. So I love it. I really love that last thing you said. And, it is hard work and you do have to be consistent, but if it's something you love to do, and that really resonates with me, that you feel guilty. Sometimes I actually made a post about it the other day, where I've quite often recently kind of sat and thought to myself, is this really my life? Is this what I do? How is this really my life? I just hang out in my basement all day. It's awesome, because although I'm I do like people, and I'm quite, fitness, but it's not it takes a lot of effort for me to be there, probably different from yourself. And so for me, the solitude of sitting in the basement on my own, running a business, is exactly what I need every day. So I can do the other stuff really well, because I love the balance of it. So I really appreciate the times where I just sit down here and hang out on my own. It's awesome. And it's quiet and dark, and I just do my thing. And then I can go and deliver amazing sessions as well. Right. But sometimes I'm this is really my life. This is cool. I built my business around what I wanted it to be, because I figured out in my life what was important. And sometimes I do feel bad about it. And I was having a conversation. I was working out with a friend, really good friend of mine. He has a gym in his garage. So I'll drive up to his house and we'll hang out and chat and work out, once a week. And we were doing a workout the other day. It was 9:30 in the morning. We're, he's got the garage door open. We're lifting weights and we're chatting and, making noise. And I was kind of it's kind of nice just to, this is our life. We hang out, we work out. And I was like, sometimes I feel bad. And, some people will say, oh, it must be nice. You get to go hang out at 9:30 on a Thursday and do a workout. And I'm like, but I got up at 5 that day and I did some work. And he made a great point. And I just think it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, we can feel bad sometimes. But he said, you know what, another way to deal with it is just say, yeah, it is nice. And so, because that's the life you chose to do, you don't have to apologize for it. Like if you're willing to do the work, to your point, and make the effort that's required, then it's nice. It's nice that I can choose to take 2 hours off in my day and go work out.
Right.
So yeah,
agreed.
Good. So there. So I'm not going to apologize for it anymore. So there.
I love it. And you know what? People that feel like, it's hard to listen to people complain too, is the other one. Because on the flip side of that is, if you're unhappy, what are you going to do about it? And that's very much the attitude that I have. My husband, same thing. I would come home when I was unhappy at another career, and he would say, okay, are you done? Are you done? Now, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, it really shut me up, that's for sure. But that's the kind of attitude you have to have. And that's why I left. It wasn't easy leaving the careers that I did. I mean, when I left teaching, my mother thought, and so probably everybody else, that I was having a nervous breakdown. This is the voice I get from my mother, but Christine, oh, she's from Brooklyn, by the way, and she doesn't sound like that. But Christine, what are you doing leaving teaching? All your degrees, your pension, what are you going to do with your pension? What are you doing? I'm like, your medical, what are your kids going to do? I'm like, we're okay, Mom, like I'll figure it out. And I had a supportive husband who was like, listen, I know you work hard, you'll figure it out. Like there wasn't a doubt. It wasn't a, you'll figure it out. And that's all I needed was, you're right. It's going to be difficult. Maybe I'm going to, again, you're used to making a certain salary and living a certain type of life. Guess what? You might have to take a dip for a while. And it's very humbling. And I'm very grateful to experience the roller coaster. And there was great advice. I used to have a neighbor who was an artist, and he told me, when he's always been an entrepreneur, always had his own business since high school. He's a really well-known artist now that paints all these cool things on stages. Like if a band plays, he does live paintings and then sells. Oh my God, amazing. And he had said, you know what, Christine, when you leave, here's what's going to happen. He's like, that you're going forward. If life is a roller coaster, your highs are going to get higher and your lows are going to become less and less. And that's how you know. And he's like, it doesn't happen overnight. He's like, but it's going to happen. And that I thought was really great advice, because those highs, you do stay up there for longer, and those dips don't seem as bad, and you can handle them. So anyway, that's my diatribe for that one.
Yeah, and that's so true. It's such a true thing about business and life in general, right? Like those dips and those highs and lows. And I have to just touch on this real quickly, and then I'm going to ask you another question before we start wrapping up. But when you have a partner, wife, husband, whatever it is, whoever your partner is in life, that is so supportive, it's like the best thing and the worst thing, right? Because they're so behind you, everything. Like, I want to do this, and they're like, I said to, and we started our business recently. And when I said that, I said, I think I'm going to quit my job, and I think we should just start our own business. And you can help me around your job. And, a lot of people, I'd imagine, you kind of almost want them to say, no, that's crazy. Don't do that, because then you've got an out, right? No, not in my house. So I was like, go on then, quit your job. Let's do it. I'm like, but hold on a minute, I haven't thought it through yet. She's like, I don't care. You don't need to think it through, just do it. I'm like, oh shit, now I got to do it. So it's nice to have those people in our lives that are just 100% like, no, never doubt for a second anything. So
he didn't support my skydiving though.
No.
That I will say. Caveat. He was like, yeah.
I bought Nikki skydiving for her birthday, and then told her on the way. So that was also really fun. Yep. She'll listen to this and be laughing, I'm sure. So I want to wrap up, because you touched on it, and I think we need to tell everyone a little bit more about it. And I know it's not till January, but we need to just plant that seed now. So tell us a little bit more about the book too. Oh, look at that. It's right there. It's everyone is watching. And if you're not watching, you should
Look,
go on our YouTube channel.
Actually, there's no words in here.
Oh, it's just
if
a
you
cover.
are watching on YouTube, what they do. Okay, so what you have to do, I had no idea. This whole process has been so hard. And as an English teacher, I was like, oh yeah, totally got this. I got this book thing. Like, I've always wanted to write a book. Oh yeah, my publicist was like, okay, by the first month, we'll have the title, we'll have the outline. Yeah, it took me 6 months to get the title, to get the outline, to whatever, because if you're going to do something, you're going to do it right. And so what wound up happening is going through all these ideas and all these things in life and all my experiences. And I think all of us have times in your life when you've just gotten kicked in the stomach, you've gotten beat down mentally, physically, whatever it is. And you have the choices of, what are you going to do? And so finally we came up with split second courage. Now everyone's like, well, Christine, what the heck is that? It doesn't exist. I'm like, you're right. It does now. So split second courage, my subtitle is, what if your fears were the key to your dreams? So this is actually my signature book. And I do a lot of like speaking events and some like inspirational stuff and mindset coaching. So what this book talks about is, these are stories of like real life superheroes. So over the past 4.5 years and over my lifetime, I've met so many amazing people that have stories that are they just blow you away. And, from people being, shot in the head and surviving, someone being hit by a bus and 1% chance of surviving and beating the odds, people that are paralyzed and go on to do amazing things to change the world. And then some of my, history of just stuff is what I'll say right now, where, I'll share some of my stories and some stories that are really, some people that have been in my life that I've interviewed. So these are all real people that are in here. And it kind of talks about, what is split second courage, because a decision takes a split second, but sometimes courage takes a lifetime. And why do some people choose to act? Why do some people never act? And it kind of goes through, different stories of the why and different ways that, you can use whatever happened to you as, as a gift. Why does it have to be a crutch? And, re-examining your relationship with time. Why should we put a stamp on our life? Like, let's just live, do what you want, and not think, is this the last time of, let's go for it. Let's keep moving forward. So anyway, this is my baby. And I'm very excited to kind of get out there and share, just like I do with the podcast, share more people's stories that I think could really impact the world and maybe change and save some lives. So that's what I'm out to do, one day at a time.
Amazing. And I love the selflessness of that approach, and it's so awesome. So check it out, Split Second Courage. You can keep your eyes peeled in January and check out I'll make sure everything's in the show notes, and
I'll send you everything, Gareth.
Everything. So you have a lot, and I'll put it out there. And even if we don't have it in time for the show notes and you're listening to the show, you can head over to, there will be links to Christine's website. You'll be able to find everything you need to be able to get yourself a copy, and make sure you read it. I'm excited. I am going to read it. Now, I have a more important question though. Are you going to record an audio version of it?
You were like the 800th person that's asked me that. It's so funny. I didn't think of it at first. And then we're going to release the digital version first. And then January is the official launch. So that's December is the ebook. And then it's this whole big process with Amazon and everything. Crazy. But I'm looking for probably the spring for an audio version.
Whoa.
We got some time. I know. Me too. Me too.
I'm ready for it. I'll be there. I'll be waiting on my Audible account. I'll be pre-ordering it, ready to go. So
what's cool is that I may be reading it too as the audio.
Love it. Nothing better than the author reading it. Whenever I pick books on Audible, I'm always like, oh, it's not the author. I feel like I need to feel it from them. So I love it. Great idea. Now, like I said, we'll get everything. It will be in the show notes if you want to contact Christine about anything, books or otherwise. It's all in there, speaking arrangements, etc. And obviously you can contact through myself as well. I want to just hand the mic over to you and say, have you got anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up the show? Any passing words of wisdom or anything else?
I give quotes all the time to people back from English teaching. And I always had a quote of the day or something. And I like to pick different things. And I do have some, some clients I've kept, some personal training clients. And I have quotes of the day for them. I always, defer to Wonder Woman, that, always choose something in life. But I will say, make sure that you go and read some of Dr. Seuss, because the Places You Go is really kind of important to remember that you can move mountains, and that, we kind of underestimate ourselves sometimes. And great quote the other day I used was, instead of looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, be the light in the tunnel. And I'm going to drop them with that.
Absolutely. Love it. Christine Conti, you are phenomenal. I appreciate you. Everyone that's listening, I know, also appreciates you and got something incredible from this episode. So thank you on behalf of myself and also Nikki, although she was busy on mum duty tonight. So while we were recording, and everyone listening, thank you. We appreciate support. These podcasts grow when people listen and they share. So if you've got something amazing from this episode today, which I know you did, please share it with someone you love and care about. And just spread the word further so we can help more people. And you heard why that's so important throughout the episode today. And it goes a long way to building the podcast brand that we have and getting it out there to more and more people. So I appreciate it. Share it on your social media stories, send it as a link, whatever you can do. Tag us on the social media, and all the links are in there. You can also join our Facebook page for the group. So if you want to jump on there and go in some polls, tell us what you want to hear about, tell us your favorite episode, who you want to hear on the show, etc. Go in there, join the group. It's literally at the top of the show notes for every episode. And we appreciate your support. And that's it. We are wrapping up the show. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.